One of the joys in my profession is to create opportunities in my courses or class sessions that invite students to pay deep attention to the public and global health issue that we are discussing. The focus of my Teaching Innovation project is on integrating the arts and humanities into global and public health education, practice, and research. The inspiration for this project was really about challenging students to explore new ways of understanding many of the challenges we are faced with today. I really wanted to develop a new model for how to actually integrate the arts and humanities into global and public health education. The purpose of this project was really to weave or thread the arts and humanities into many different courses within the Masters of Public Health program. One big change that I wasn't anticipating was that my colleague and I decided to experiment together with a new course offering this spring.
I feel that a lot of times in public health, when people want to get a message across, they write a paper, and that almost 99% of the time doesn't reach the audience that it needs to. And so something that I feel like the arts and the humanities do really well is putting something in a format that other individuals can interact with. And that's what I interacted with. When you have someone put something in an art form, the readings that we've done and the poems that we've looked at and the impact that it has on students, I think goes a really long way.
One of the things I've been so excited to do is really experiment with 6 new class sessions. And in those class sessions, I either take a topic in global and public health, like the opioid crisis in the United States, or I take an art form and branch from the art form to integrate global and public health topics. In one class session, I took students to the Johnson Museum and we were examining the environmental crisis and looking at issues of immigration and migration and the trauma impacts of that. Some of the students had never even been to the museum before, so it was their first time. I think what's so innovative and exciting about this project and this approach is that for many of my colleagues and graduate students studying global and public health, for some of them it's their first time to consider or to think about the power of the arts and humanities.
Getting to interact with these pieces little by little has changed my trajectory for my career, especially because when I first came in, I wanted to do something along the lines of research, which I feel like doesn't have a lot of humanities in it. So like wet lab work, working with DNA and like doing PCRs and stuff. But after Professor Mosley's lectures and her activities, I really wanted to push for more humanities. And I feel like in our program, every professor that's willing to listen to me, I've been like, please do something, like please bring Jeannie and please connect the arts to the curriculum. Because after a while, hearing a lot about the history of public health and a lot of like challenges that we've gone through, it doesn't click for me until I see individuals like artists who connect that challenge to something that they can show. I feel like art is almost like a snapshot of history in that moment. And sometimes just reading it in a book doesn't do it for me. Like I can't put myself in an individual's shoes, but having the humanities, having art, poems, things like that really puts myself in their shoes. And I feel like for my future career, I want to go into policy and I want to incorporate the humanities into it because narratives are a huge part of why we have a lot of policies that have passed, individuals coming forward and being like, this affected me and I want to tell you my story. That's basically art in itself, and I really want to incorporate that in my future career.
It could invite new perspectives and new voices into our classroom space and also challenge students to think about their shared humanity, not just with one another, but to also gain a new perspective about the public health issue and how we might respond.